let's get into the triple jump with Willie Banks. In 1985, Willie set the world record of the triple jump, jumping 58.11 and a half. That's a record that stood for a decade. He was the American record holder from 1981 to 1996. He was a member of 3 U.S. Olympic teams, and he was captain of our U.S. Olympic team in 1988. And he is a California kid, 2-time California state champion while a student at Oceanside. And he went on to earn All-America honors 4 times at UCLA. 1985, he was named Track and Field News Athlete of the Year. And his topic tonight is a step-by-step way to understand the basics of the triple jump. It's our pleasure to welcome Willie Banks. Mr. Banks.
Thank you very much, Tim. I really appreciate the introduction. And I want to thank the LA 84 Foundation and Mount SAC for hosting us. This is an amazing clinic. It's always amazing to see track people come together, especially track coaches, because we can talk about what we love and what we want to, how we want to improve our athletes. And so I'm happy to be here to help out in any way I can. Like Tim said, there's no question that is too basic for me to answer. I love the basic ones because I can make them as simple and as complex as you want. I've been doing this for 40 years. It's the love of my life. And I've gotten everything from it, including my wife, my house, my kids. Everything comes from track and field and triple jump for me. So I also want to thank you all for the commitment you're making during this, during the pandemic, to continue to do what you do as a coach for your athletes and to be on these clinics, to spend that time to learn so that we can make our athletes better. So thank you for that. You know, what I've learned over my career as an athlete is that adversity made me better. There was no better training than to have something happen to make me work harder. And this pandemic has proven that. And you'll see that in all the performances that you're going to watch in all the elite competitions, as well as the Olympic Games. People are going to jump, throw, run, and do all these different sports at a much higher level because they've had the opportunity to really understand that the love of their sport is more important, and because you've missed not being able to do it the way you're so used to. So that's just a little introduction. And like I said, I'm really pumped up about what's to come, and I hope you are too. And I want to start now by sharing my screen, and we're going to go through the basics of the triple jump. For those of you who are, professionals, you may or may not learn something, but hopefully in the Q&A, I can tickle your interest in some other areas. Okay, so here we go. Make this happen. I hope I got it right.
That's it. You're all set.
All right. So this is just the introduction. So I wanted to have this screen here, the history of the world record, because it means so much to understand your sport. And a lot of people don't understand the origins of their event. And the triple jump really was kind of a drinking game, right? It comes from the islands. They say they think it comes from Ireland, and a drinking game to show, who could hop, who could step, and who could jump the furthest. It's just like the log throwing contest and things like that. Well, the triple jump is thought to have come from, the British Isles and the Ireland, and them doing a little bit of competition after drinking. So now it has become a very important sport, I'd say, in track and field. And only because we here in the United States have had such a great history. There are other countries who've had great histories as well. And I'm going to show you just a little bit here. Oh. So if you look down, you'll see even Japan used to own this event in the 30s before the war. And it's because they figured out how to extend their hop and their step and their jump. It started out as an American event. You can see James B. Connolly actually was the very first Olympic gold medalist, and for the very first modern Olympic Games. And then it went to Ahern, then Japan took over for a while, and then it started to spread. And there's one person on here, Victor Sineev, who won actually three gold medals and a silver medal in the Olympic Games during his reign of the triple jump in 68, 72, 76, and 1980. And then Oliveira from Brazil, 10 years, I broke his record, and then Jonathan Edwards. And Jonathan, as you can see, has held this thing for quite some time, and he's an amazing athlete, and it's great. But I think if you look at it at the triple jump right now, jumpers are getting much closer to this record than Jonathan really likes. So we'll see how that goes. My money's on Christian. So if you look here, you'll see there's actually 5 athletes here. Well, 5 if you include me, but 2 of them are, 3 of them are gold medalists, and one of them is, and all of them are world record holders. So, and I don't know if you all could tell, but one of them is Oda-san, that's the guy in the middle. Nambu-san is the guy on the right side. De Silva is between the 2 Japanese gold medalists. The world record, he held the world record for probably a couple of months. His name is Kogake, and he was my sensei when I'd go to Japan and train. So he would coach me in Japan. And then that's me when I was younger and had hair. So now we'll get to the actual, well, you can see who the world record holders are, both men and women. These records have stood a long time, and they've all come through. They all were set they both were set in Göteborg, Sweden at the World Championships. Now, it is my feeling, and I hope as a coach you'll understand this, that training should be about skills, drills, and of course, fun. And if you know your sport or you know the event that you're teaching well enough, it can always be made fun. And so as I began to explain the triple jump, the basics, I'm always going to add something, hopefully that's interesting, that you can add to your repertoire of coaching skills. Now, skills, of course, are those things that an athlete can learn and have. And then drills are things that help support the skills that the athlete has or that the athlete does. And then the fun, well, that just keeps them motivated, right? And what better way to motivate than to have a little fun? So now, basic skill 1. Now this, I'll tell you, has been a little bit controversial because people don't understand the triple jump well. But there's one basic skill that I've seen in young people that I hope you as a coach can really focus in on. And that is a flat foot when you jump. Do not jump on the ball. Do not jump on your heel. It has to be a flat foot. And if you remember that and you watch for that, your athlete will avoid injuries and be able to jump better. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of videos so that you can see what I'm talking about. And then we'll go through, well, let me go through this first. The flat foot is, as it says here, it's a basic, but most jumpers don't understand it. And especially I've had trouble with my female jumpers who always want to do more of the splits and land on the ball of their foot, which is very detrimental and can hurt their foot. It can hurt their gastroc, the calf muscle. It can twist an ankle because you need a firm base when you're jumping. You want to try and get the athlete to understand the flat foot by talking about, landing where they feel like they have both their ball of their foot and the heel of the foot, the bottom of the foot, all hitting at the same time on the ground. So in my efforts, I talk about, squishing a bug. I tell them, how are you going to squish a bug? You don't squish it with just your toe. You put your foot on it, right? Or when you're breaking a board or pushing a skateboard, on a skateboard, your foot is going to be flat. So you want to emphasize that, because if they land flat, then it's easier for them to use the strength of their whole body rather than just the strength of their calf muscles to jump. And I got this really because when I was younger, I used to observe jumping, animals jumping, humans jumping. And I remember going to watch a ballet because I thought they were so graceful. And I watched this guy named Nureyev. This is back before you all were born. But Nureyev was one of the greatest ballet dancers of all times. And he came to LA and I got the best ticket I could get, sat down in front, and I watched him jump. And I found out that his jump was very different than the triple jump. He wasn't using power, he was using finesse. He was landing on the balls of his feet. He wasn't landing on the flat foot. He wasn't as powerful. And I noted all of that. And as I went back to study films and study how other jumpers were jumping, I noted how they used their foot and how the better jumpers landed flat foot and was able to carry their speed through because they were able to get off that foot like hitting a board if you're going to bounce off a board. So you've got to get your athletes to start with the flat foot. That's a basic skill that they have to learn. So here we go, me being a little bit crazy here. I'm going to play this for you. The sound is from a recording of from a VHS. So for those of you who don't know what a VHS is, look it up. Now that was a flat foot. It's hard to tell because it looks like maybe I hit with my ball of my foot, but it's a flat foot. I'm going to show you one more time so you get a better idea. This one is with active flat foot. So I'm moving onto the foot and it's more of an action. You can see the foot landing flat. Boom. And the action is down, flat. Both the ball of the foot and the heel hit at the same time. That's the action you want to create. That's what you want to look for in your athlete. And it's hard sometimes to see if it's heel, ball of the foot or the ball heel of the foot, but you'll note a marked difference when the athlete hits just right. They won't feel the pain. They won't have a problem at all, and they'll get off that foot quickly. Now, the basic skill 2, the second most important skill is learning how to bound, okay? Now, I put down here, can you hopscotch? Because when I was younger, what we used to do, of course, is this thing called the hopscotch where you draw out the boxes and you jump from one to the other. And I found that I could do it better if I didn't lean forward on the ball of my foot. If I could land kind of heel or flat, I could do it much better and I could jump further over 2 and 3 to get to 4, right? For those of you who know what hopscotch is. So the hop, as it says here, is what I really want to talk about is not so much the hop as hopping, okay? Hopping. So learning how to hop or bound is critical, because bounding is the basic of triple jump. It's the basic of how you perform the event. Land flat and be able to bounce off of it, bounce off of it, bounce off of it. You never want to settle when you're doing a bound, and you never want to settle when you're doing a triple jump. And what I mean by settling is you don't land on the foot, wait, and push off. You hit the ground. So it's like hitting the ground and going. And as you take off, you want to make sure that your foot is when you're at the board, you want to hit the board, but you want to push. So you're pushing off the board. And that is slightly different than what you do when you're in the rest of the phases. But we'll talk a lot about that as we go along. This last paragraph here, standing leg push-offs and heel to butt. Those are drills that you can do in order to mimic the flight of the hop. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. So the next basic skill that we have to teach, or that we have to emphasize, is our arms. Arms are the balance, as well as the tool that we use in order to keep speed, to maintain speed throughout the jump. It also helps to build power in the jump and coordination. So arms are critical, and I don't know how many times I've seen it, probably thousands of athletes doing the triple jump who could be very good, but cannot get their arms together to save their life. It's amazing. And these are very good athletes, some of them elite athletes who need work on their arms. Just to give you an example, when I was, back in 95, before the Olympic Games in 96, Jonathan Edwards 97, after the Olympic, Jonathan Edwards gave me a call and said, "Hey, what am I doing wrong?" And we talked about his arms, and I went out to help him. He flew me out to help him with his arms, because arms are that important. And he lived in, he was in the UK, so I had to fly from California to the UK just to help him out, spend some time with him, helping him with his arms. So arms are critical, and if we get them right, it'll help the jump tremendously. So I put in here long jump because I want you to understand that there's a big difference between the long jump and the triple jump. And if you can, a lot of times you take your best long jumper and you'll want to have them do the triple jump. Well, you have to understand that there's going to be a big learning curve, because most of the athletes are going to come down and they're going to try and jump like they do in the long jump on their hop. And if they do that, you're looking at an athlete who's going to crash and burn, because it is a different movement off the board. You have to, in the long jump, you're going to jump off the board. And in the triple jump, you're going to push off the board. And you're going to use your arms in a different way. So instead of coming to the board and doing a penultimate stride, shortening, which helps shorten the last stride, pushing down and going up and out, you are going to maintain the same running rhythm, and you're just going to run off the board. And what's going to help you jump is the drive of the thigh and the drive of the arm. That is a critical difference that you want to learn. So focusing on the arms of your athlete is very important. In the triple jump, there's 3 different techniques that you can use in the triple jump. Because there's 3 phases, there's 3 ways, there's going to be 3 different ways that the arms will be used in each phase. So you have the double arm action, which is both arms going at the same time, and we'll do the double arm. You'll see that the double arm later, but you got double, 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 and into the pit. So that's the double arm action. Then you have the single, your single, single, single into the pit. And then there's a mix. It could be single, double, double. It's going to be hard to do double, single, single. So it's usually going to be single, double, double, or it could be single, single, double. But there's a mix that you could add in there. My preference is single so that you keep running off the board, and then double, double so you have the power to jump the other two jumps off of the board. And I believe that if you're coaching your athletes, you should always give active homework. Active homework. What is active homework? That is doing a drill that you can do at home, right? And I used to do my active drills at school. So if I'm walking down the hallway, I would do my arm action and all my arm action while I'm walking down the hallway, right? Now, I may look crazy, but I didn't care because I wanted to be number one. And that's what motivated me to do what I had to do. And you can do the same. Same thing with your run. You can do your walk so that the walk becomes into your jog and into your run. And you do these drills so that, not so that you perfect them physically, so that you can perfect them mentally, because that is what is going to be the determining factor in a great athlete. Not so much physical, but the mental strength of your athlete. So we have to build in this mental action, which is the homework that you send your athletes with. Now let's see if I can make this happen here. This is going to be this is going to be the double arm takeoff so that you can see how an athlete takes off the board. And hopefully you'll be able to hear the sound. If not, I'll
Two
walk us
distinct
through it.
styles of takeoffs, the double arm and the single arm takeoff. In the double arm, which I began with, the object is to be in running position until takeoff, and then to decelerate the opposite arm from the takeoff foot in mid-motion and bring it up and out to mirror the other arm's forward motion. Both arms should accelerate forward until they reach a point parallel to your chin, then quickly decelerate. The wrist should be turned outward after you complete the deceleration, and arms should be placed behind you as they flare out for stability in preparation for the next phase.
So the double arm is the action that you'll see Christian Taylor and a lot of athletes do now. It is not my preference. It slows the athlete down. And I had to change from double arm to single arm because I was so slow. Now, the fact that Christian and several other athletes are fast, they can kind of cheat and get away with it. But if it was me, I would have them go off on a single arm action, and we'll show that in the next video. But the key here is to learn. You have to coach your athlete to not slow down with the double arm. Do not slow down. They have to drive through, and it's almost a 1.5. And what some people do is they run, and as the arm comes back and the front arm comes forward, they tap their stomach so their arm doesn't stay there. It's like a tap and go. So they both meet each other. And that's one way of kind of cheating it. But if I were you as a coach, I would teach my athlete the single arm. They're going to want to do the double arm because, well, Christian is doing it, right? And he's eventually going to he's the world champion, and go and Olympic champion. So it's hard to beat that kind of of an example. But first, to be fast off of the board, you need to do the single arm. All right, now let's go on to the next one.
Two distinct styles of takeoff.
Wait.
The double arm and the single arm takeoff.
There we go. Sorry. There we go.
The single arm takeoff is similar to the double arm, but the arm moving back does not stop and follow the other arm forward. Rather, the arm moving back continues its path as the lead arm moves up forcefully, accelerating, then quickly freezing to give lift. Before the swing arm finishes its movement back, it begins its movement forward to catch up with the already frozen lead arm. Once both arms are in front, about chin or eye level, the wrist should be turned out and the arms placed behind in preparation for the next phase, just like the double arm movement. These movements should be easy and coordinated with the leg action. Your lead knee at takeoff should be almost parallel to the ground. When it reaches its peak, let it move back as your plant leg comes up and through. Don't jerk either leg. The plant leg should come up to parallel to the ground, then held for a split second as the arms reach their position. As the plant leg begins its descent, the lower leg should move forward and out. Then a split second before impact, the arms should begin their forward motion and the lower leg should move backward, so at impact you are moving over the leg and not stopping your momentum.
So let me see if I can break that down a little bit more for you. When you're doing the single arm, it looks complicated when it's slowed down like this, but the single arm is very simple. You just keep going your run. You keep doing your run, and then you bring the other arm forward and freeze the front so that you can get into a double, the next phase, which would be a double. Or you just swing the arm and then swing it back and swing it back again. That's a single, right? A single. And then we can talk more about this, but moving forward off of the board, the takeoff, it's much faster if you just use a single arm off the board, driving the arm forward and then freezing it in front and then bringing the arm forward and then getting into the double after that. The good thing about a single arm is it allows you to move your body forward and push off the board rather than gathering, which is what is caused by the double arm. You gather with your shoulders and everything and you swing your arms forward, and that is a slowing down motion, and that's something we want to avoid.
The single arm takeoff.
Okay, we've heard that enough. Now, remember we talked a little bit about active homework. Well, this is an active homework that you could do with your athletes. It's basically the single arm drill that you can do while walking. Now, let's see how it actually operates. You can see the swinging of my arm goes back. The left arm is swinging. Let's go back again. I want to just show you this so that you see what I'm talking about. So, right. Oops. Right here, I'm going off of the board. Okay, that's the right arm in front, the left arm going back for balance. And then it catches up, and then I go into the double. Okay, that's a single arm takeoff with a double coming out. Then I walk through. And this is my leg going off the board, and then boom, into the double. Swing it. One, off. Good. Okay. So next we're actually going to go through each little part of the triple jump. The run, the hop, the step, the jump, and the landing. So these are the basic skills, or I'm sorry, the basic parts of the triple jump. So there's 4 parts of the run that I like to coach. Now, some people may say there's only 3, but I take the approach that you can break the run down to 4 parts. The start, the momentum, the position phase, the attack phase. Okay, those are the 4 parts. Some people call the attack the takeoff phase. Okay, but what we want to do is we want to emphasize a different type of running on each phase of the run. So let's take the start. Now, there's some people think that, some people have a different start. I used to do in the long jump, I would have a static start. That is, I would stand, maybe put 1 foot back, and then I would go. And that was my run. Others would have an active run. Now, I did active run for the triple jump. So a static and then an active run for the triple jump. An active run is a run up or a skip or whatever it takes to get you to your mark, your beginning mark, and then you take off into the 4 phase, the next phases of your run. So let's take an example. Especially for an active run, if you will have a 16 stride approach, and when I say 16 stride, that's what some people would call 8 beats. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I always count every time your foot hits the ground. Some coaches can't do that. I was just used to it, so I can say I can run through it like that. So when you get to that point where it is your run, that is separate from the run up or the run into your run. Now, again, a static, there is no run in. You just go from your mark, and that's it. I would say, actually, though, even a static start has a run in, okay? Because if you just get started, you're not going at enough speed to really have a consistent pattern. So what I like to do is break it up. Even if you start from a static position, the first few strides are not really counted in the way I adjust a person's run. And I think as a coach, you need to decide how you want to break this down. If you want your athletes to have a static start, just know that first step is going to could change from 3 inches, from a few inches to a foot or more based on the athlete's excitement level or the inconsistency of the first step. So you always have to watch that. That's why I like to have an active run, so that the athlete gets into a pattern. So once they get to the start, they will be in a regular stride, so that you can actually gauge how well they're going to be on the board. So the first thing we want to do is work on that start. Excuse me. In order to set up the start, what I usually do is have the athlete run. They'll run. the athlete will run down, like 50 meters or so, and I'll have some cones set out. And I will have the cones set out at every 10 meters. And I will watch how many strides they have between each 10 meters. And that way I will be able to determine how long their stride is. Once I've determined how long that stride is, it's simple math to determine how far the athlete would have to run in order to establish a 16, an 18, or a 20 stride run. Now, for some people may go from 12, 14, but most of your boys are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 14, 16. Your girls may be in the neighborhood of 10, maybe even, and to 16. And what we want to do is I like to keep it around 16 strides. Some people will call it 8 beats, but I like to keep it around 16 strides so that we have a good measurement, and usually that helps. That is it can be more consistent that way. And then I add, if an athlete is a strong athlete, I may add 4 strides or something so that they can run into it. Usually between 2 and 4 strides into their run is what I would add. Now, some athletes, I don't do this at all. I just let them go, and they will have more of a 14. If you start at 16, I'll call it 14 strides, because again, we want to get to a consistent stride rather than just a run. So once you've established 16 stride, 12 stride, whatever it is, you want to now focus on the consistency of your start, the consistency of your start, because again, the start will vary tremendously based on your athlete's abilities. Then an athlete, after about 4 to 6 strides, 4 to 6 strides or 3 beats, an athlete is going to change. They're going to go through that, they're going to go from kind of a slow to more faster pace. And I call that the momentum or power phase. And that's when they're digging down. They're not looking at the board. They're looking about 6 feet in front of them, and they're building and building and building. And once they reach about halfway down the runway, they slowly come up and they enter what I call the third phase, which is the rhythm phase or position phase of the run. And that's where they're running almost like a sprinter, up tall, thighs coming down, driving down through the ground, pushing backwards so that their momentum, the momentum that they have gained in the momentum phase can turn into speed, which is the rhythm and the quickness of a runner. And then the final phase is like 2 strides out, and that is the attack phase or the takeoff phase. And that is just run, feeling like you're pushing through a door, or you're hitting a tackle dummy. You want to push through with your hips and shoulders pushing together. Hips and shoulders aligned. And then you go off the board. Head direct. Head is in a neutral position. So those are the 4 parts: the start, the power or momentum phase, the rhythm or position phase, and then the attack or takeoff phase. And the ratios, well, they vary a little bit. Now, you would have something like 50% would be your start and momentum phase. About 25% would be your rhythm or position phase. And then about 25% would be your attack phase. Now, you'll see here that it could be 50, 30, 20. It could even be 50, 40, 10, just depending on your athlete and depending on their expertise and skills. Now, at the board, we have the takeoff. And we talked a little bit about the takeoff. And you can compare it with the long jump and the triple jump. And I want to just emphasize once again, you do not jump off the board in the triple jump. You push off the board. In the long jump, you jump. Okay. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the actual jump phases. So there's 4 phases of the triple jump: the hop, the step, the jump, and the landing. The landing, I'm just going to say, is we call it a phase, but it's really not. It's just being in position. So with the amount of time I have left, I'm going to kind of skip that and just talk a little bit about the hop, the step, and the jump. The hop, you saw a little bit of it in the video earlier with the arm action. You're running off the board, you allow your leg to come around behind you and then prepare for the step phase. Here's the trick of the hop that I think will really help you in coaching your athletes. The trick to the hop is to get the athlete not to use their abdominals. They should just use their hip flexor, which is that muscle that controls you lifting your leg up. If they use their abdominals, they're going to pull and they're going to shorten. You want to keep the abs long, keep your head neutral, and then allow your leg just to go around. What I see in a lot of young athletes is they want to pull with their abs instead of keeping their abs long and just rolling the foot. Now, how do we fix that? Basically, you want to tell your athlete to place the foot out, place the foot around. Don't try to pull. You push out and just let the leg come around naturally. Now, here's the other part that is very difficult, and I think I'm going to save this for later. But the key to being a good triple jumper is when you land on the ground, both knees should be within 2 to 3 inches of each other. If they're not side by side, they should be 2 to 3 inches within each other. Okay, you don't want a leg hanging back. They're going to crash or they're not going to get a good jump at all. The key to a good triple jumper is to have the knees, when you land, those knees should be within 2 to 3 inches of each other. Either the swing leg should start as you reach the apex of the hop. When you're coming down, that swing leg needs to swing down. Too many people, I see this even in the elite levels, they wait until they almost get to the ground before they're starting to bring the swing leg through. And it splits your legs, and the center of gravity goes between the legs, and you crash. And if you saw the earlier video, I went up too high on my single leg and I came down and the leg was way behind me and I crashed. And when I say crash, I kept going down even when my foot hit the ground. My body just kept going down because I couldn't stop it because my center of gravity was between my legs, and it has to be on top of the leg. That's why both legs have to come together. I hope, that's a little bit difficult when I can't show you in person, but just understand that both knees have to be within 2 to 3 inches of one another once you hit the ground. Now, very, very difficult part of the phases of the triple jump is the step phase. The reason why it is difficult is because a lot of athletes leave their swing leg behind. We just talked about both knees have to be together within 2 to 3 inches. If they are, it's easy to do the step. It is so easy because you're just pushing from a strong position. You're just swinging the leg from a strong position. If the leg's behind, you have to wait for that knee to come through, and that slows you down and it causes crashing. So, when you're doing your drills, you always want to make sure you're bringing the legs through quickly and make sure your athlete is working the swing leg. If they do, as they come out of the hop and they swing, once they get their arms together and their swing leg in position, everything lined up in one line, arms, legs, everything, head lined up in the same perpendicular line, it's easy to jump. It's very easy to jump. Now, the jump phase, same thing. You jump into the pit, hold a position, and land. Now, the landing, of course, is important because you want to make sure that your feet are out in front. Once your feet hit the sand, you want to bring your hips forward by pushing your arms back and around and landing. And you can see that in several videos on YouTube. You'll see the landing where people fold up almost in order to prevent themselves from hitting the behind where their heels first hit the sand. So I am going to hold it right there because I think I've got about 10. I wanted to have 15 minutes left, but here we go. So I'd like to open this up for questions through Tim, I guess, and try and answer these questions as quickly as I can. And then tomorrow, I'll do a training program so you can write out your training program for your athletes.
Okay, if you want to unshare your screen there for a second. All right, there we go. We've got some interesting questions here. I want to start with the one I thought was really, well, first, the second one. The first one is, now that I know that the Irish are the ones who invented the triple jump, I'm ready for Jeopardy. That's going to be a question there, I'm sure. All right. How come 25 years? Somebody was looking at the chart. 10 years, and then you were 10 years. Afterwards, 10 years later. How come it's 25 years? What happened in the last 25 years? That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And for the answer to that question, I believe, is that Jonathan was the perfect stature. He had good speed. And one thing that we have to remember, Jonathan was able to be at a good age with less mileage on him because Jonathan, for many years, couldn't jump with the rest of us when we jumped on Saturday. I think it was Sundays. So he could only jump on a few of the days. So I never really saw Jonathan much. So he was he just had everything together. And again, he was fortunate because you're going to be a little bit older in the triple jump to set records. I don't know why this is so, but most of your record holders were fairly older. And that means in their, first in their mid 20s and then later on in their latter 20s in order to set these world records. And I think the reason is, just like in the shot put, well, just like in the throws, it takes time to learn skills. Sprinting, boom, it's more just strength and speed. And those are basic skills. Technical things like throws, jumps, it takes time to learn each technical thing. So now why did it take 25 years? Possibly because he did something like they did up in Mexico City when everyone was setting their record in 68. He jumped way beyond what was supposed to have happened. When I jumped my record, they said it couldn't be done because Oliveira set it at altitude. When I set that record, I said, nah, that was not that big a deal, right? I can do it again. I did jump further, but they were all wind dated. Jonathan, on the other hand, he had everything going for him. He had the technique right, he had the speed right, and he could bounce off of it. So I think we're finally getting to an age where that record is in jeopardy. There's a lot of athletes who are chasing it, and we're getting very close. Let me just say one other thing. I'm sorry it's taking me so long, but
No problem.
the one other thing that I think is critical to this, and I've always thought this, I haven't done a study on this, is that once a group of athletes who are really good at something, who've hogged up all of the time, money, and all that in an event leaves, it takes a while for people to catch up because no one wants to do that event because that person is there. And so you're not going to win, you're not going to get paid. And so they go to other events, the better athletes. At least this is how I saw it. If you take a look at history, there's an athlete like Bolt. He comes in and he just wipes everybody out. Why do you want to do that? And so it takes some time, maybe a decade or so, for another athlete to come along, and especially in the triple jump, because it's not a basic event; it's a technical event.
Very good. Well, then let's stay with this question. This was about Edwards. You said you went to visit him. The question is, what was he doing wrong with his arms? What did you decide?
So he was doing two things wrong. One, when he was first jumping the world record, he wasn't using his arm very much. He was just using his speed. Boom, boom, boom. And then what I saw was he then started copying a guy who won in '88. What's his name? He came over the top. Markov. He started copying Markov over the top. And I said, well, Markov's legs were as big as trees and he's stronger than you. And why would you do that? Because you're just bringing all this weight down to the ground. So he was doing it wrong. And I said, if you're going to come over, you got to come over and be moving forward. So we adjusted that and he started jumping much better.
Very good. Here's a great question. I coach middle school track. For all my athletes, this is their first time ever triple jumping. What should I focus on the most to build a good foundation?
Well, two things. One is bounding, and it's hard to teach bounding, but it's like you have to do it. It's just bouncing, right? So teach bounding, and you can go on YouTube and you can see a lot of people doing bounding exercises, but bounding is critical. The other thing that is critical is learning how to run. Kids have to learn how to run properly. And running in the triple jump and the long jump is different than running in a sprint. It's more mechanical, it's more let's say it's less fluid, and it's bouncier because you're going to jump.
Okay. How do you decide which foot you should take off from?
So I believe that you should, if you're high jumping with your left foot, then you should start with your right foot in the triple jump. That's been my belief. I started with my left, and because I was a high jumper with my left, and I did left, left, right, and then I broke my left ankle. And so then I switched to right, right, left. And I found that if I switched to my right, right, left, I could use the speed that I have on the runway to jump, maybe not as far, but more stable and more and stronger. And then when my speed has dissipated, I can use my high jump and long jump leg to end the triple jump. And I got longer jumps than 99.9% of the people. And so I stuck with that. And I talked to Christian about that, and I talked to his coach. He switched as well.
Very
And
good.
this may be the wrong crowd, but if I was talking to an elite athlete coach, I would explain to him the Charlie Simpkins syndrome. Charlie could hop step into the pit. That was dumb. He never did it. If I would have been him, I would have jumped into the pit, because then they would have had to make the runway longer. They would have, instead of 42, would have had to move to 44, 45. And then Willie Banks would never have been a world record holder.
Mhm.
Figure it out. And I wasn't telling him.
Very good. Do you ever time the approach from when you start the approach to you hit the board? And then do you ever time from the time you hit the board to the landing? I assume there's stopwatch. We're talking about just timing like that.
Yeah, I have done that, but I never, let's see. So you're talking about the jump part, right?
Well, I think they're talking about both. So from the time you start the approach to the time you hit the board, do you time that? And then do you ever time from the time the foot hits this is the exact question, from the time the foot hits the board to the foot hits the sand at the end?
Okay, so I haven't done the foot hits the board to the sand. And I haven't done all the way from when you start to when you finish, but I have done midway from like your 8th stride out to the board. And I think that the reason why I did that is because once you get 8, on a 16 stride, once you go eight strides and you got 8 more to go, you are in your optimal run. And for the rest of it, you want to build speed. And so that's what I measure. Because if you run fast in the beginning, then you're not pushing. So there's no real benefit. The benefit is midway, where you're into the actual rhythm part, and then you're building up speed at a higher rate. And that will tell me whether you're actually going to run off the board or whether you're going to have to jump off the board.
Okay. Should all 3 phases be equal, or is there a difference for each one?
So when I first got started, that's what everybody was talking about. All phases should be equal. But then after a while and after many studies, they found that no one does it equal, right? And the reason why is because each time you hit the ground, you are losing speed. So generally speaking, the step phase is going to be shorter than the other phases, unless you're a hop dominated, which means the first phase of the jump, the hop is dominant, meaning you jump further on that one than any other phases. Then that means your jump phase is likely to be your shortest phase.
Okay.
But you don't usually find a short hop and a large step and jump.
Right.
Traditionally, it's short step or a short jump phase.
How bent should the knee be when it hits with a flat foot?
When it hits the minute it hits the ground, it has to be flat. But because you're jumping, it has to be at least in 1/8 of a squat, right? I mean, it has to be bent to let's see, what would 1/8 of a squat degree be? Yeah, 45, 45, a 12.5 degree knee bend at least, right? So that you can absorb the pressure of landing and then immediately take off. So a 12.5 degree bend in the knee.
All right, let's end on this one. This is a great question. You are a bit of a celebrity, so I assume you get this all the time. Is it true you invented the clap for field events?
Which clap are we talking about?
I assume they're talking about the clap at the beginning. There you go.
I know.
Are you responsible? They want to know.
Yeah. Yes.
You got to tell that story. It's a great story. Let's end on that. That's a great story.
Okay. The story's kind of long though. It takes.
They can always leave us if they want, but they won't want to. This is a great story.
All right. Well, then I'll tell the story. I'm happy to. So, I will claim that clap, and let me just explain. Back in the early '80s, we had this problem. The triple jump was sort of an esoteric event. And the reason I believe was because most of the jumpers that were great were led by the Soviet bloc. And for those of you who are too young to know, there was this thing called the Soviet bloc versus, the East versus the West. So led by Russia, what at that time was called the USSR. So they were great over there, and there weren't very many Western athletes who could compete with them. And so when I started jumping in the circuit, the triple jump was needed some help. But I had just set an American record in 1981 in Sacramento, and I had jumped 57 foot 7.5 inches. And I was so excited about going to Europe because I knew I was going to get paid, right? Because if you're a record holder, they got to pay you more. At least that's what I thought. So I went over to Europe with my manager, Pete Peterson, and we went to the very first meet. I only had one scheduled at the time, and that was in Stockholm. And so I was like, I'm going to kill it. Pete went in, he talked to all the meet organizers who would make these deals, because at that time, you didn't win cash. What you did was you got paid an appearance fee, and that enabled us to compete all around the world. So he went in to make the deals. He came out and he said, "Hey, Willie, I got some good news and I got bad news." And I said, "Well, start with the bad news first." And he said, "Well, there aren't going to be any more triple jumps after this meet, the Stockholm meet. So, sorry." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He said, "Yeah, they're not going to have a triple." I said, "Well, what's the good news?" He said, "Well, I got you a long jump in Lausanne after this." And I was like, I can't take that. So I went into this room. Now they don't really allow athletes in there, but I was mad. I couldn't believe it. I had just set the American record, and they're not having the triple jump. And I went up to the guy who had most of the meets in Europe. And I walked right up to him and I said, "Hey, I heard you're not having the triple jump. What the heck is going on?" And he was a cop. He was a British cop. And he was a big guy. And he looked at me very sternly and he said, "Listen here, you punk. Who do you think you are coming in here? First of all, why would I want to pay you if no one's paying me? You're not putting any butts in the seats. So I'm not getting paid. And if I'm not getting paid, I'm sure as hell not going to pay you. Now get the hell out of here." I was like, what? What I didn't understand, and what I don't think people still understand, is this is a sport where you got to entertain people, because if you're not entertaining, they're not going to come to watch you. So I went out and I was mad as hell. And I went to my room and I thought, what can I do? I can't do anything. I know I'll set a world record. So I put my stuff on and I went to the stadium. No one was in the stadium. And I just started jogging and thinking. And I had headphones with what we call a Walkman. And for those of you who don't know, it was this recording with a cassette tape, right? So I had looped this music on it and I was just listening to it and getting into my thoughts. So I did that for a while and people started coming in and more. And this was in the Stockholm Olympic Stadium that held about 15 to 17,000 people, depending on those people who stood. And people would come to the track meet and it would fill up, and not half, but 1/4 of the people would be standing at a track meet to watch these meets. So the meet started. They brought the triple jumpers together and they gave us the instructions, like they do, and they were sending us off. And I said, "Wait a minute, guys. I don't know if you know this, but there's no more triple jumps in Europe. We've got to do something to show them how exciting the triple jump is. They don't think the triple jump is exciting. We're going to do something special today. We're going to set records. We're going to show them that this is exciting." Well, everybody just kind of looked at me and turned and walked away. And I thought, well, maybe they don't speak English. I don't know. It was ridiculous. Anyway, so I went back. I put my headphones on, started stretching and dancing to the music. And the first 8 guys fouled. It was the most boring thing you ever want to see. red flags galore. So when it was my turn, I took my headphones off, I took my pants down, and there were like maybe 5 drunk Swedes in the stands right next to me, right? And because in Europe you can drink beer or whatever at the stadium, so maybe that's why they could fill a stadium. So those guys were looking at me and laughing. I took my sweatpants off, and they whistled. And I was like, really? Come on. And I got ready. And when I get ready to jump, I usually clap my hands 3 times, I shake my fist 3 times, and I go. Well, these guys were like looking, and I clapped my hands 3 times, and they clapped their hands 3 times. And I was like, oh, they threw me off my rhythm. And I looked over at them, and I just, okay, thank you. Clapped my hands 3 times. They clapped their hands 3 times. And I was getting a little annoyed, but I said, look, this is the last one. Let's just go. Clapped my hands 3 times, shook my fist. They clapped their hands 3 times. I ran down and jumped about 54 feet 6 or something like that. It was a pretty good jump. And I came back, and they were clapping, just these 5 guys. And I waved to them, put my headphones on, stretching and dancing. Foul, 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 my turn. I get up, I take my stuff off, and these guys started clapping. And I clapped 3 times, shook my fist 3 times, ran down, jumped 55-1. Swedish record. Come over, and these guys are clapping, and now about this whole section is clapping. I thanked them, and I put my headphones on. Next time was up. This time, the whole section was clapping. And so I said, well, this is not bad. And I started shaking my fist to the clapping. I ran down. I jumped 55-5. So I was going further and further. And then it started to dawn on me, this could be fun. So on the 4th jump, they got rid of all the crummy guys, and only about 8 of us were left. I ran down and jumped about almost 55 high, maybe a 55-10. And as I came back, I thought, this is still not interesting, because they can't tell how good I'm doing, because they don't put it on the stupid billboards or anything. So I asked the meet promoter for 3 flags. And he said, why do you need the 3 flags? And I said, well, I want to put one at the world record, one at the European record, and one at the Swedish record. And he said, good idea. So he put it out there. And when it was my turn to go, I thought, I'm going to break the world record on this jump. And everybody except for the people on the very far side were clapping. And I was just eating it up. I ran down. I took a hop, skip, and a jump. I landed at the world record. I put my arms up, and I'm like, yes, I did it. Now, as a triple jumper, you can feel when you foul pretty much, right? You can feel it. So I knew I had fouled terribly. Man, you could probably see the plasticine from Mars. It was looking like this, right? I said, well, but the guy, I was like playing it up. I did it. And the crowd was going crazy, right? And the guy with the red flag was shaking as he raised the red flag. And I looked at him like shaking my head, no way, knowing that I had done it. And he was shaking, and I thought he was going to cry. I ran over to him. I got on my hands and knees, looked at it. I didn't need to do it, but I played it up, right? And I looked up at him. I said, you caught me. And he just, whoosh, he was like, thank God. And I waved to the audience and went back. And I thought to myself, you know what? This is my last jump. And usually these track guys, they get to finish their race, and then they run around and people throw flowers and underpants and all kinds of brassieres. And a jumper, you finish, and they just tell you, get off the track. I was like, I'm not going to let that happen to me. It's my last chance. So before my last jump, I put my headphones on, I put my sweat top on and my sweatpants, and I started slowly jogging around the track. And as I jogged, every section I came to, they clapped. And then they stood up and they sat down. All the way around the track. That was the first wave in track and field. So I was like, whew, I got back to the end and it was my turn. And once I took off my headphones and my sweats, I stood at the top of the runway. And all of a sudden, I put my hands out like this. And I just brought them together. And everybody at the same time was like, vroom, huh, huh, huh. And it was unbelievable. I was standing on the toenails of my shoes. And I just started running. And they clapped to my foot. And I took off, hop, a skip, a jump, very close to that world record, right? And I'm like, splash into the world record. I jumped 57 feet that day. People came out of the stands. They picked me up. They carried me around. They actually gave me a microphone. Big mistake, as you can tell, because I will talk forever. And all this pandemonium, it stopped races and everything else. And after it kind of died down, I walked over to where all these meet organizers were. And I was like, so what do you guys think? And they started, okay, it's not so bad. You can come and jump in my meet. I had several jumps after that, but I just got to tell you, remember my manager came out and said, he had good news, and that was that long jump. Well, I'm not a long jumper, but I thought, okay, I'll go. So I went down to Lausanne. And, I thought that was my 15 seconds of fame that God just gave me. So I'll just go down here, long jump, and then go to these other triple jumps that they were going to put on for me. But I never knew what was going to happen at this long jump. So I was jumping about 24 feet. And I got to about my third or fourth jump. And someone said, well, come on, Willie. And I turned to him. I was like, well, what do you want me to do? And all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, oh, my God. They must have been watching me on TV. I just ran as fast as I could. I jumped as hard as I could. And I landed at 26 feet 8, which is 8 meters 11. Best jump of my life. And I won. I set a Swiss record. And I'm not Swiss. So from that day on, it just followed me everywhere I went, this clap. And I played it up until I quit. So that's the story I'm standing by.
That's great. What a great story. All of you are fortunate to be with us. You're going to be at a track and somebody's going to see everybody clapping and you're going to say, let me tell you about 5 drunk Swedes. That was great. Oh, thank you so much, Willie. Thanks for sharing that story. And nobody dropped off. Everybody stayed with it. So very good. So, it's so exciting. You're so willing to share your passion for the sport, and your passion to help other coaches is inspiring. You may not be familiar, but Willie is at the highest level of our sport, at the national and international level. And for him to take his time to work with us is wonderful. And that's what's great about the sport too. So thanks so much, Willie. We really do appreciate it very much.
It's always my pleasure, Tim.
Oh, it's ours. And just a quick reminder. So what is better than watching TV, isn't it? You got it. It almost as good as watching UCLA win last night. There you go. Yeah. Hey, join us tomorrow night. Relays 4x1, 4x4. And Willie, you're going to have to come up with a story for tomorrow night too. Because we'll be back with drills and training for the triple jump tomorrow night. So once again, thanks everybody. And good night.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Good night.
Good night.